4 players, 4 kill teams, 1 massive conflict. Welcome to the Zorpazorp Kill Team campaign. The hive world of Fendatha, once a bastion of imperial might, has now become infested by the Greenskin. A huge orc mech cogfist steel snapper has built an orc empire upon the bones of this imperial world, stripping the planet's cities and reforging them into a landscape of sprawling shanties and orc settlements. The largest of all is the infested hive city Cogfist, which has become the ultimate battleground, as forces of the Imperium clash with the Xenos in brutal and bloody conflict. With supply routes cut and resources stretched thin, each force relies on brutal kill teams stalking the ruins of this shattered world to strike with lethal precision, crippling enemy assets, and paving the road to victory with blood. This narrative campaign focuses on the valiant efforts of 4 kill teams, all desperate for victory for either the Imperium or the forces of disorder. So in all 4 of today's videos, we'll meet these heroes of humanity or agents of darkness. But 4 kill teams means 4 players.
I'm Ollie from Broadsword Wargaming, and I will be running the 95th Regiment, the Forlorn Hope, of the Death Corps of Kree.
What's up guys, Casey from eBay Miniature Rescues here. I'm running a yet-to-be-named warband for the Death Guard.
I'm Benji from Benji's Hobbies, and I'll be employing the lethal Kill Team Aurora of the Deathwatch Space Marines.
And I'm Lockie from Zorpazorp, and today you'll meet a squad of orcs like none you've ever seen before. It's time to bring to life the Kommandos of Skarzot Skullcrusher. This hardened team of sneak boys are veterans of the Fendathan campaign and only know one way to fight. The way of war, but like a slightly more refined war than some of their mindless brethren, Skarzot and his team deploy deep behind enemy territory by crashing their custom sneak plane into an enemy target and setting up a base around the crash site. Their big mech and his grok gang set about fortifying the base with artillery positions and begin to repair the sneak plane ready for exfiltration, while Skarzot and his Kommandos run a series of insurgency operations against hostile forces. Upon completion of their goals, they pack back into the sneak plane, leaving behind any grots dumb enough not to get in first, and take to the skies to either return to base or crash land by accident and simply repeat the process all over again. If you're excited to follow the journey of these crazy commandos over the coming months, be sure to hit the subscribe button, as they have quite a story ahead of them. So it's time to get these boys assembled and start to discover the characters that make up our kill team. I'll be assembling the full roster available from the Octarius Box, giving them all their names as well as handing out some ranks and bonus starting experience to really give the squad a bit of backstory. I had a look at my kill team roster and decided on assembling 2 regular commando boys to sit in reserve on the bench, and then for my frontline team of 10, a slasher boy, commando grot, breacher boy, sniper boy, dacker boy, comms boy, burner boy, rocket boy, bomb squig, and of course, commando Nobz Skarzot. There's a couple of options for each pose, and I've opted for full variety here, assembling as many of the different unit types as I can to make my games as exciting as possible. And for my big boy Skarzot, he'll be crushing skulls with a power claw. So, with assembly complete, let's have a quick check-in with Betty. Hey dude, how go the xenophobic Space Marines?
Way ahead of schedule at the moment, but it was a little bit easier for me with only 5 models to paint.
5 models? Dude, you know you've got to paint 2 teams, right?
Good joke, Lockie.
1 for me to film and 1 for Ollie.
I've still got quite a lot of work to do then, so I'm gonna go.
Ben? Ben? For the colour scheme itself, I decided I really wanted to try and capture the story of this kill team in the colour palette. These guys will be running around in the dark depths of the Fendatha hive, striking from the shadows, absolutely filthy and terrifying to behold. So, I opted for a Zenithal Prime starting from pure black and then moving up through the greys to a pure white. I applied this quite top down and kept it really contrasty, not overly angling the Zenithal to create a look that these models are standing in a dark street or alleyway with just a single sputtering lumen above them. You can see already that the models have a fantastic grimy aesthetic with the Zenithal Prime, and now I'm going to be doing something I have never done before. I'm going to paint this entire squad using exclusively translucent layers. That's glazes, washes, and filters only. The classic Citadel method is out the window, and up first is our orc skin. I grabbed my new wet palette that Emil from Squidmar organised because he was so sick of seeing my gross old tub, and then grabbed grabbed every green translucent I could find. I really hate it when I see a squad of orcs all with identical skin tones. These crazy bastards are grown from mushroom spores. There would be a huge amount of natural variation, so I'm going to use a mix of green tones. I settled on 3 contrasts: Orc Flesh, surprise surprise, Militarum Green, and Plaguebearer Flesh, as well as the Hexwraith Flame Technical, and put them down on my palette, creating a dilution gradient by mixing in some contrast medium. This now gives me a whole range of greens of different tones and saturations to work with. Our first squad member to meet is of course Skarzot himself, and he's getting that classic dark green skin tone with the Orc Flesh contrast, using the thinned contrast to create a filter over the zenithal, which creates some natural lovely highlights and super deep shadows. I wet blended a mix of Hexwraith Flame here and there through the high muscle fibers just to give them a little accent, and I really love how much presence the skin already has. His face is dark beneath the peaked cap, his chest is in shadow beneath his arms. I think this is really capturing the look that I want. Our next warrior is the Commando slasher boy Erlak Dashiv, who is also a combat veteran and has the blade work battle honor. He is an absolute beast, and his skin was hit with a Militarum green filter with a few blends of Plaguebearer Flesh to lighten some of the highlights. Our third skin tone style goes down on a humble boy Orky McOrkface, and yes, one of my patrons, Maddie, did choose that name. He's the fresh recruit of the team, which for some reason made me want to give him a really light skin tone. So he was glazed predominantly with Plaguebearer Flesh, with a few blends of Orc Flesh and Hexwraith Flame into the targeted recesses. Once the whole squad was done with subtle variations on those recipes, it's on to the next biggest layer of all, the brown fabrics. These will be achieved using the exact same techniques, using 3 new contrasts: Snakebite Leather, Cygor Brown, and Skeleton Horde. Playing with the pigment ratios on these contrasts is key, as some of them have some really great sweet spots and some saturations that aren't that nice. Our next commando is Big Dak Mad Eye, a veteran sniper with the Crackshot battle honor and Skarzot's second in command. His first brown layer is some Snakebite Leather pants, which gain some great definition from the shadows around his legs. Then his backpack gets some Cygor Brown with about 50-50 medium, which creates an awesome brown that looks much nicer than when it comes straight out of the pot. Some more of the Cygor Brown mix goes down on the undershirt of our second humble orc boy Stugbrog Bench Sitter. That poor lad is always picked last for sneaky missions, and by mixing up the combinations and placements of the various browns, we can really create a nice motley set of orcs who feel unique but belong together. He gets a Skeleton Horde filter on his backpack, which makes a nice graduated khaki moving down the bag to the bottom, and then it's over to our Breacher boy Grand da Hammer, who is rocking some Cygor Brown on his boots. As this layer is quite far down the model and would be further from the light source as well as where we want to draw a viewer's eye, I've used a subtly darker blend of Cygor Brown. Once again, I took subtle variations of those methods throughout the rest of the squad, and now I've got one big block of fabrics left, black and greys. But first, I wonder how Ollie's going with his Krieg team.
Fuck, I'm never gonna get this done. Where's that sprue?
Guess I'll call back later.
Our contrast filters for this step are Black Templar and Basilicanum Grey, who were then thinned to a gradient to give us a huge selection of grayscale to shade various fabrics. Our first candidate is the Dakka boy Dakkadak Blacktooth, who is in full Spec Orc mode with his stylish beanie and black fatigues. The real trick with these darker contrasts is to apply several thin passes over the areas of the bright zenithal highlights to build up the darker tone. This avoids any blotchy pooling of overpigmentation. Our next orc is Gazbag Loudgob, the Commando Squad's comboy, who is a veteran scout with the Swift battle honor, and his large backpack is full of lovely details, which makes putting down a dark contrast filter an absolute dream. Lots of lines and edges to capture all that pigment and very few large flat surfaces. His straps, pants and gloves are given a lighter filter for a bit of fabric tone variation, which is just so important for these orcs. Lots and lots of subtle variation to emphasize the ramshackle nature of their culture and artifice. Up next is one of my favorite team members, the Grot Commando, Kevin. Yes, that's another Patreon name. He spends his days flying from building to building with his grappling hook and is wearing almost all black with a few dark green accents on his gloves and backpack. These had been hit with a mix of greens during the skin tone step and are now darkened right down using the Basilicanum Grey filter. With all the blacks and greys down, the team is starting to take on a bit of shape, but we've got one last accent color to set off against these muted tones a nice deep red using another contrast filter, this time with Flesh Tearer's red. This is another contrast that is straight up awful out of the pot, but it hits a nice sweet spot once you dilute it with medium. There's little red details spread across the whole team, but our big one is of course Zorpazorp Flame Spitter, the squad burner boy. He's got a big old tank of Promethium strapped to his back, as well as some red details on his burner. I used 2 thin passes on the flatter surfaces of the barrel for a smooth finish. Zorpazorp's brother might love a bit of red fire even more, and he is of course Zorpazorp Boom Killer, the squad rocket boy. Big up to James Carver, one of my patrons, for those 2 epic suggestions. Nothing like a red-tipped rocket to make it fly faster through the air to incinerate the enemy. Speaking of going fast, when could speed be more important than when your master lights the dynamite on your back and tells you to run towards the nearest enemy, or at the very least away from anyone green? It's time to meet Grimbold, the first of the team's many good puppers. The Grots must have a little breeding station in the back of the sneak plane or something, because these guys don't last very long.
Hey buddy, what's going on?
Hey dude, how goes Papa Nurgle?
Oh yeah, man. 2 full teams in Nurgle's best. Well, you know that's a lot of models. It's gonna be real tight.
I'm sure you'll get there. Power through.
I'll do my best, but no promises.
If anyone can do a case, you can.
I already got my kill teams done. These chumps were busy making terrain. I was busy working.
Well, the 4 workhorse filter layers are done, and now I'm going to cheat just a little bit and apply 1 quick base coat on all our metallics, hitting them with Canoptic alloy, but I am applying it quite thinly to allow the graduation of the zenithal to come through just a little bit, so it's not really cheating. I took my time here to make sure I didn't mess up any of the previous layers, and then it's back to filters as we start to give these metallics some tonal variation. First using Guilliman Flesh, and then the Basilicanum Grey contrasts. Both of these were neat out of the pot and create a wonderful brass and darkened steel tone respectively. I tried to have all 3 tones of metallics present on every weapon or piece of equipment: brass, dark steel, and the unfiltered silver, to create a maximum level of tonal variety and interest. Then all that's left to do is to add a few details, some white insignia, eyes, pupils, and some teeth, and then we continue to the final step, the real step, the step that makes these models go from average to absolutely awesome with 0 effort at all. I'm sure that some of you saw this coming with the overly bright tones of the filtered layers, but that bright starting point is crucial, as every color you see on the model right now will become our highlights, because we are going to utterly soak these in a black enamel wash. First, I gave them a semi-gloss varnish to seal and protect all the work underneath, and also to allow the enamel to flow more easily into the recesses, and then I grabbed some Tamiya black and diluted it heavily with enamel thinner and started soaking the orcs. Get it absolutely everywhere. Go f***ing crazy. The incredible aspect of this process is that everything is completely reversible. If you put too much black on, you can just take it away with thinner, and the layers underneath are safe as houses under the varnish. I am going dark and grimy, really muting these colors heavily to get it into a much more grimdark aesthetic, really evoking that feeling of my kill team stalking through the darkness of Fendatha's night. But I am being cautious not to apply too much pigment so that it pools and stains. We want this to be just another filter, albeit a pretty heavy-handed one. We are shifting the tones, not applying stains. So now we have the tones in a much better color space, and now we bring in the pièce de résistance with a cotton bud soaked in enamel thinner, and we sculpt back our highlights by gently rubbing away enamel wash from the highest points of the model. This step is like sculpting with light. It's absolutely amazing. Wherever I touch restores the original brightness in small degrees, and I can rebuild the highlight profile to really make the model pop. The top of the muscle tone, the edges of a blade, the fold of a backpack, they're all suddenly coming to life out of the darkness, and from nowhere the models have so much presence. They're not all bright, they're not all dark, they're just bloody awesome. And I'm not kidding, this was piss easy. I haven't used this technique for over 3 years, and look at the results I got. These models might have taken me all up about 12 hours. With this process, I could get an army done in a week. To get rid of all the yucky gloss, I gave them a matte varnish, and now it's time for the greatest Grimdark basing of all time. I threw down some Geek Gaming fast fast-drying basing glue, let that get tacky for about 10 minutes, and then dipped all the bases straight into the Grimdark City Rubble base ready, and then with a quick pipette of matte scenic sealant after some isopropyl alcohol to help it penetrate, and boom, these orcs are looking fly. All of these products are available from my shop, Zorpazorp.com, or from Ollie's shop, BroadswordWargaming.com if you're in the EU. And with that, Skarzot Skullcrushers are ready to meet their base of operations we constructed earlier this week. Ah, there we go, boys. Home sweet home. Do you guys want a tour? Well, this is the balcony, Dakadak. There's a lovely pintle-mounted shooter there for you. Here's the workshop. I reckon you hang out in here, Skarzot. Get a bit of space from the rabble and chill with the mech boy. Don't know where he is at the moment. Big Dak, here's a great spot up for you. Up on the top, you can have your own little tower with a great vantage point. You'll like that. You'll love it. Gorkazorp, Morkazorp, you guys are obviously going to hang out by the huge tank of Promethium. There you go, lads. Make yourselves at home. Yes, I know it's not painted. We'll have to get the grok gangs on that in the coming weeks. So, there we have Skarzot Skullcrusher's Orc Kommandos. But who will they be facing down upon the battlefield? I think it's about time we met the other 3 teams of the upcoming campaign. Here's a little tease, but to learn their stories, you'll have to check out Ollie, Casey, and Ben's videos linked down in the description and the top comment. This campaign is absolutely going to knock your socks off, guys. We've got battle reports, more terrain guides, homebrew scenarios, and so much more. Be sure to subscribe and smash that bell button to make sure you don't miss anything in the lead up to the Battle of Fendatha. And strap in, Zorptrons. This is going to be, yep, you guessed it, stupidly massive. Lockie, out.